This is the second episode in our latest season featuring missing persons across the United States, and the first in a two-part series. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are solely the interviewee's own. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. There is discussion of substance use and violence in this series, so listener discretion is advised. This is The Fall Line. We've now covered several cases of missing and murdered individuals who grew up in and lived in Albuquerque, and that's thanks to the work of friends and advocates who connect us with the families who need coverage. But we've never focused on a single neighborhood in the city. This time, though, it's important to start in one, because the International District plays a vital role in the landscape of the victim's life and in her disappearance. The International District is the neighborhood on the east side of Albuquerque, a stretch of East Central Avenue running west toward downtown and cutting through the middle of the city like a seam. If you've driven through on I-40, you may have passed it without knowing, or you might know it very well. According to the records from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, this stretch only became part of the Mother Road in 1937, when Route 66 was realigned to cut straight through the heart of Albuquerque. For decades, it was a neon-lit gateway, but by the 1980s, the character of the neighborhood began to shift. Albuquerque Journal archives from that era document a period of significant struggle, as a rise in violent crime and gang activity led locals to adopt the unofficial nickname of, quote, the war zone. And it's a reputation that has been hard to shake. Historical Albuquerque Police Department crime mapping shows that the district has faced disproportionately higher rates of violence compared to the rest of the city, and for decades. But there's a much broader story here than just the statistics. In February 2009, the Albuquerque City Council passed a formal resolution to officially rename the area the International District. The goal was to better reflect what reports describe as the most diverse square mileage in New Mexico, a place where more than 25 languages are spoken, and people from dozens of countries have settled along Central Avenue. Anastasia Ferriera had grown up nearby the International District, and as both a teen and as a young adult, it's where she spent most of her time. It's also the last place that she was seen, or where her phone last pinged, at least. That was at a faith-based nonprofit called God's Warehouse. According to KOB4, the organization has been operating for roughly 15 years within the same block of Central Avenue. The space has and does serve as, quote, a sanctuary for over 400 people in the International District 7 days a week. Pastor Chuck Aragon, who runs the warehouse, also provides meals, clothing, and addiction recovery support. Anastasia had spent a lot of time at God's Warehouse, enough that staff and volunteers recognized her. It was a safe haven, but she also helped out. Her mother, Natalie, told us that the staff described how Anastasia would help pass out food at mealtimes, and she was easy to remember. Her friendly personality, that was part of it. The other standout is how small Anastasia is. She's well under 5 feet tall and weighs less than 100 pounds. Anastasia Ferriera disappeared in March of 2023. In the first 2 weeks of the month, there was spotty social media contact with friends, including one who was staying in a trailer near the God's Warehouse building. After that, no one's sure. But her family has not stopped searching, and they hope that by reaching a broader audience, there might finally be a resolution that will bring Anastasia home, or lead them to anyone responsible for her disappearance. Her family understands the risks that came with Anastasia's situation in early 2023, that she was struggling with substance use issues, and that she was often out walking alone in areas that weren't always safe. That doesn't change their desperation to know what happened or where she is now. They love Anastasia, and they want to bring her home. That's what matters most. Anastasia Brenda Ferriera is known as Stasia to her family, and as Karma to some of her friends. If you're familiar with her, you could know her by any of those names. To her mother, Natalie Padilla, she's precious, and she's Natalie's only child. Anastasia was born on December 9th, 2003. Natalie's own birthday is December 10th, and she had Anastasia the day before she turned 21. And after that, they always spent their birthdays together. Natalie told us that the back-to-back celebrations just felt right. They'd always been incredibly close, and even in Anastasia's teen years, when things got difficult, that was never in question. The last text Anastasia sent to her mother says it all. Quote, "I love you." She sent that in early March of 2023. We'll get to her last messages and what was happening in her life then. But first, we need to start with her childhood. We sat down with her mother, Natalie, and her maternal grandmother, Brenda, for whom Anastasia was named, to talk about what it was like to raise her. According to Natalie, she was always brave and bold, basically not a child who could be eased into anything.
Very outgoing. She actually started walking at 9 months. She was potty trained by 11 months. Talked, full on sentences. It wasn't one word. Her first sentence was, "What's that?" Her dad actually had a gecko, and she would always say, "What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that?" There was no, taking baby steps and, just very loving and just giving love and kisses and hugs and just very, very friendly. She was not shy. She would talk to a stranger at the grocery store, if you had her in the basket, and she would be telling everybody hi as you walked by.
Anastasia was outgoing, but Natalie says she was also fiercely defensive of her family, even as a small child.
She was very protective of my mom and I, didn't want anybody saying anything to us. Don't look at my grandma. Don't look at my mom. If a man was interested, she would, she was very protective, a very protective child. A lot of passion. Just, she loved family, spending time. Just, she was a girl's girl. She loved jewelry, glitter, fake makeup, lit chapstick, getting her toes done, just girly stuff. She was a girly girl. Music, she would dance in her car seat, and just a very girly girl. She used to do runway modeling, and so when she first started walking, and she'd get everybody's attention and make sure everybody in the room was staring at her, and she would strut her little stuff and come right back and do a little turn and making sure everybody was paying attention to her.
But Anastasia was also a daredevil, and she was brave in ways that impressed her mother and also that made her nervous. Anastasia would be like that throughout her life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, running, jumping. She'd be out there playing with my nephew. Just, yeah, kind of a tomboy too, I would say. She didn't mind picking up bugs. She loved animals. My mom had goats at one time, and she helped deliver twins and was out there getting dirty, no fear at all.
We mentioned Anastasia's maternal grandmother, Brenda. Since Natalie worked weekends, Brenda often cared for her, and she didn't mind. She and her granddaughter had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, since she was a baby, I would get her every weekend. I spent every Friday and Saturday with her, and Natalie picked her up on Sunday mornings, and that was our time together. I spent a lot of time with her. She's my life. I live in the country, so I've always had animals, and I think because of that, that was one of the things that we bonded together. Like Natalie said, she helped us deliver baby lambs, and oh my God, I just remember seeing her face. We had chickens. We never had baby chicks, and she was there that weekend with me, and she comes running in the house all excited. Grandma, we have baby chicks, and I didn't even know we were going to have chicks. She was the one that found them, and she just loved being out there. Natalie even got her a baby pig. What are those little pigs called? A potbelly pig. So I think you have one of those pictures of her with her potbelly pig, and she just loved animals. And I think we bonded with that too, and cooking and cleaning and just doing girl things. We used to like to ride the train together. So we have a Roadrunner train system that runs between all the little towns. And so we would ride the train together, and she thought it was the greatest thing, and we'd go to the movies and go have ice cream, and because the train stopped right where the theater was, and we'd spend the weekend. We just hung out together and talked. We would talk about everything and anything, and she was just such a lively, kid. She was happy, so happy. Everything made her happy. Everything. And when she would talk to me, she'd say, because I would always tell her, "You're my air, without you, I can't live, I can't breathe." And every time she'd call me, she'd say, "Grandma, are you breathing? Take a deep breath, Grandma, I'm here now."
Natalie told us that one of Anastasia's favorite things in the world is art, and in all of its different forms.
Yeah, she used to she did creative poetry in school, in middle school, and she loves to draw and write. And she was interested in getting into tattooing. And I know her dad was kind of training her for that also. So yeah, drawing was the big thing. Actually, in her room, she still has some of her drawings up in her room now. Back when she was younger, it was more scenery, mountains, sky, birds, butterflies, animals, cats, dogs. And then she got into like her older days writing names, kind of like not graffiti, but names, the block letters, roses. She loved flowers, drawing flowers in her older age. She used to draw like praying hands with a rosary. She could pretty much do it all. She even had a tattoo gun and everything still at our house in her room. So she was getting into it.
We've explained that Natalie and Anastasia were close, and she told us that her daughter's favorite time of year was December. The holiday season was fun, of course, but it was really about the other special time, their almost shared birthdays.
Being that she's December 9th and I'm December 10th, I had her a day before I was 21. That was like the best gift I had ever received. And we would spend our birthdays together, cake, we'd go to dinner. We love going out to eat and getting appetizers. And, we would take her balloons to school, cupcakes to her class, and roses every year. And Christmas was a big thing for her. She's a gift giver. So she loved giving gifts. That was, even if she went to the Dollar Tree and spent the last $5, she was going to buy and make sure she got somebody something.
But there were some things about her daughter that worried Natalie. She was bold, and she was fearless, and she was protective. But Natalie also thinks that she was a little naive. She noticed that early on, but it became more of an issue as Anastasia entered middle school.
A little too trustworthy. I wish her guard was up a little more and didn't trust everybody. And she likes making friends. That was one big thing. And her friends were everything to her. They meant a lot to her. So she was a little too trustworthy.
It's true that Anastasia loved people, but that doesn't mean she always had an easy time with other kids or at school. And when she was in 8th grade, it all got a lot harder.
She was getting jumped a lot, beat up. Girls were throwing food at her. I remember we had bought her some white shoes and she was wearing white pants, and a girl threw a red slushie at her, and she was getting bullied a lot. And then, kind of skipping school because of that. She was afraid. We tried to intervene, get the school, we got involved and tried getting the cops involved, but nothing really came of it. So she wasn't really into school at that point. So there was a lot of bullying, a lot of fighting. She did good. All her grades were great. She did fine. Her teachers loved her.
And that was true. But as Natalie told us, it wasn't enough.
She actually got expelled from school because she got in a fight at a basketball game and they told her no more fighting, and that was the last straw. But she wasn't the aggressor. It was some other girls, but being that she was still involved in the fight, she got expelled. After that, it kind of went downhill. We did get her signed up for school. She kind of went back and forth with her dad there for a little bit at 13, and they had her in middle school fighting again, getting in some trouble, and then kind of just, it didn't progress from there. It went downhill. The internet, that was really, a bad influence, being on the internet and seeing other kids with boyfriends. She wanted a boyfriend and just kind of was not focusing on school. Like I said, and the fighting happened. So it was more of a fight to get her to be doing these things. And you know what I mean?
A year or two passed and tension grew. Anastasia was not consistently in school, and she didn't work either. By that time, she was old enough, but she wanted the social and romantic life of a young adult. And Natalie said that she was not comfortable with either idea or the direction it seemed like Anastasia's life was taking. As with many co-parenting situations, the rules were just not fully consistent across households. Natalie also felt like she couldn't always keep close tabs on where Anastasia went or what she did.
I always wanted her to go to school. I didn't go to college. I wanted her to go to college. I wanted her to leave New Mexico, to be honest. I did not want her to just be stuck here. I wanted her to venture out and be a girl and have her own townhouse, apartment, going to college, just doing good for herself. So no, I was not happy at all. It was just me putting it in her head, and it was more of a fight between us, and she would, not want to be around and not want to hear it. So it was more of me pushing her away, talking about school and trying to get her into, doing something.
The back and forth between parents' homes continued into her late teens, and Anastasia did start dating. In fact, she even got into a serious relationship. By the time she was 18, the two had been together for some time.
So my concerns were, about 18 years old. She did have a boyfriend, and the dad allowed the boyfriend to move in with them at their house, and they stayed there for maybe 3 months, and that I didn't approve of that one bit. Yeah, she was 18, but she wasn't doing anything that she was supposed to as an adult. So in my eyes, if you were going to be an adult, you needed to be an adult 100%. Boyfriend and doing all that, I didn't like it at all.
But it wasn't just that Anastasia had moved in with her romantic partner. For some time, the family had seen concerning signs that Anastasia might be experimenting with drugs. There were changes in her behavior. That was the first worry.
We kind of had an idea that her and the boyfriend were up to something because she wrecked her car. She plowed into a brick wall. They were not paying attention, looking down. And when I went to the hospital to pick them up, I just knew something wasn't right. I can see it in her eyes, just something wasn't right. They were acting a little suspicious. I kind of knew something because she was coming around, but not staying for a long time. She would come, do her thing at the house, visit with us, and then they would leave. So we kind of were talking, me and my mom and Jake, my boyfriend, were wondering, what's going on. There's some red flags in the way that they're acting, and they're kind of distant, not like they used to be. Because they would come and eat dinner, we would hang out, we would go to a movie together, us four, her boyfriend, her, me, and Jake.
After the car accident, that was back in late 2022, just before Anastasia turned 19, she moved back in with Natalie. She was newly single, and Natalie was hopeful that her life would get back on track. But, she says, Anastasia's personality still seemed altered.
She didn't have motivation. That's another thing that I realized. She wasn't cleaning her room like she used to. She wasn't doing the normal things. She used to love getting ready. She would sleep a little later. It was just, she was off. Before, she would get up with me in the morning when I was getting ready for work and being, social and talking to me while I'm getting ready and, just communicating with me. And she kind of was dark, secluded in her room. And I was upset with her. I told her, you need to work, you need to do something. So there was still a lot of fighting about her not doing what she was supposed to.
Natalie told us about one particular moment, something else that also happened in late 2022.
I smelled the weird smell. And then when she left, I kind of went in her room and I found some paraphernalia and confronted her about it. And that was a big fight. And after we got in the fight, we didn't really talk about it after, and maybe that's my fault. I brought it up and then we fought about it, and then I kind of didn't say anything. And then she had people at our home. So I told her, when we're at work, you can't have anybody here. You have to leave when we leave because it's unsafe for my household. You're bringing people in here and I don't know what's going on, and it's not safe for us. So when I would leave for work, she would leave, and then she would either come back that night or the next day, but she would be in contact with me like, hey, Mom, I'm not coming home tonight. Or, hey, what's for dinner? What time do you get out, when she was coming home? So we would communicate on, what was going on. She would always have a place with me no matter what, no matter where I am, where Mom is, home is, and she knew that. And she knew I already knew of the issues. Everybody knew. I already talked to her dad about it. My parents knew. My dad knew. All the immediate family knew.
For a long time, it felt like a family problem. But then Anastasia began to have run-ins with law enforcement. The most serious incident came when she was picked up by police as a passenger in a stolen vehicle. And Natalie was upset, of course. but she also hoped the situation might be Anastasia's rock bottom point, that she might be willing to enter a treatment program.
Well, she had got in some trouble. She had got picked up by the police, and I honestly thought that was going to be our saving grace, that, now, because I couldn't force her. There was no forcing her. We were going to all put money together, my family, my mom's side, to send her to a rehab. My grandma was going to pitch in money, but I didn't even bring that up to her because I knew that was going to scare her, and I didn't want her to flee. I didn't want to, my main concern was not pushing her further away than she was already distancing herself. And then too, you put in all this money and you send them and they do it, and then they come back and go back to square one. You know what I mean? They have to be ready. They have to want it. They have to be tired of that lifestyle and be ready to give it up. You know what I mean?
The arrest brought new stressors, like court dates and expectations. But Natalie says Anastasia was still going out. It's almost as if thinking of impending legal action just wasn't something that she could process at the time. Anastasia spent most of her time in the International District, not far from where she'd grown up.
They call it the International District. It's a very rough area. It's one stretch of it's a main high road that goes one end of town all the way to the other end. And there's a lot of city transportation, so there's a lot of homeless activity because the city transportation is free. So, they utilize all that, and, they use that route up and down all day long. I kind of had an idea because she would either walk or, you know what I mean? She didn't have a car, so she wasn't either being picked up or, and I just felt like she was close to home. She didn't have people on the west side, she had people in where my mom lives, but there was no vehicle for her to get way out there. So all of it was right by our house.
By early 2023, Anastasia's daily world was largely contained to the stretch of Central Avenue Northeast near where she and Natalie lived. Natalie describes it as an area of constant foot traffic, people moving through the corridor all day and all night. Based on the police reports that we reviewed, we also found that Anastasia was in frequent contact with friends. They'd do each other favors, lend each other money, offer rides, or make plans to meet up. Anastasia sometimes reached out during the times that she felt unsafe too, like when she was in areas or residences where she felt unwelcome or worried that others present had a grudge against her. She no longer came to the country to visit her grandmother Brenda. In fact, the last time Brenda saw Anastasia was late January of 2023, less than 2 months before she disappeared. She found out Natalie was taking Anastasia to a doctor's appointment in Las Lunas.
God, that was such a horrible time. I was so worried about her, and I was constantly calling Natalie to, find out how she was doing. And the last time I saw her, Natalie had taken her to the doctor in Las Lunas, and which isn't, it's one town away from me. So I told Natalie, I'm going to go see her. And Natalie didn't tell her. And I waited outside, and when she walked out, she had her head down, and then she looked up and she saw me. And she just got this smile on her face, and she said, "Grandma." And she just came to me and hugged me, and she's so tiny. She's just like a little tiny nothing. She's so tiny. And we went to eat, and I was just so worried about her. Wanted to take her to eat ice cream after we went to eat, and she didn't want to eat ice cream. And Anastasia never said no to ice cream. That was her favorite snack. She loved ice cream. So I knew, and that was the last time I saw her.
Natalie says that though it's been reported that Anastasia was living with a friend or various friends in the International District, she was actually still in her family home. Now, she might spend a few nights out, but her permanent address was with Natalie. She always checked in by text or with a call to let her mom know if she'd be missing dinner or if she wouldn't be back until the next day. Natalie had stopped paying for Anastasia's phone service by that time, so she could only contact her family if she was in a place that had Wi-Fi, but that usually was not an issue.
Yeah, it was only on Wi-Fi. She did not have an active number, because we weren't paying it anymore. She didn't have money. So there was no way for her to pay a phone bill. So everything was on Wi-Fi. If she did any calling, it was through Facebook.
On March 1st, 2023, Anastasia was away from home, and she had Wi-Fi access. We know this because she sent her mother a text. It read, quote, "Love you," and it was followed by flower emojis. Some accounts have described this as physical flowers that were delivered to the house, But that's not accurate. Natalie confirms it was a text and not a delivery. We think this may have got lost in translation in some media reports. In any case, she was happy to see the message. It wasn't out of character for Anastasia to send her sweet text, and it was a sign that she was all right.
Because she would just shoot me texts like that. I love you. How's your day? She would ask me how work's going. I hope you have a good day. I mean, she would just shoot me texts throughout the day. How's work? What time do you get out? So no, it wasn't a red flag at all. I didn't feel like, oh my God, what's going on or anything like that. And maybe I should have, but I didn't. That was her last message to me.
March 1st was Anastasia's last contact with her mother, but it was not necessarily the date that we should consider her to be missing. Natalie has not personally read the police report. She just finds it too difficult. What follows about the days between March 1st and March 16th come from that police report, and not from Natalie, because her information stopped on the 1st. Based on APD records, Anastasia continued some communication, primarily through Facebook Messenger, after the 1st. Her last public Facebook post was made on March 15th, and her phone last pinged on March 16th at the 8000 block of Central Avenue Northeast, the block where God's warehouse sits. APD obtained Anastasia's Facebook Messenger records through a search warrant in September of 2023, and those records document her activities in some detail. The most important stretch of time to us are the late night and early morning hours of March 15th and the 16th, because those are the last messages that Anastasia sent. Beginning just after midnight, Anastasia was messaging several people that she knew. In one exchange, she argued with a male acquaintance who was pressuring her to come over to his apartment. She declined, and the conversation turned heated. Around the same time, she messaged another friend, asking what he was doing and where he was. At 12:47 a.m., she reached out to yet another person, someone that she trusted, and she asked him to answer his phone, saying that she needed help. At 1:34 a.m., Anastasia shared her location via message. She seemed worried, and she wrote that if she stopped responding, she wanted someone to know where she was. She also said that a male who was present at that location was frightening her, but neither friend answered those messages until later. We do know that she was still okay by 10:13 a.m. on March 16th, because that's when she sent another message. This time, she reached out to a friend to ask for some money. The implication was that she was going through withdrawal and she needed help. Per police records, Anastasia said that she was near Central Avenue and God's warehouse. Her friend found her there, and he gave her $15. Per his later account to investigators, they spent some time together that afternoon, and that was the last time he saw her. At 3:41 p.m., she sent her last known outgoing message, loose plans to meet up later with that same friend. Then, Anastasia's responses stopped, and although her friend continued to message her through the next day, he never heard back, and neither did anyone else, at least anyone who was willing to tell law enforcement.
That was the biggest red flag, the no contact. And like I said, social media was her main, communication with friends and everything like that. We talked through Facebook Messenger, but she always found a way to use Wi-Fi and how, to be able to communicate on what time I'd be home, things like that. And everything just stopped. There was nothing. That was very concerning. And Easter was right around the corner. We planned holidays together. Are we going to grandma's? Okay, I'm going to go with my dad for a couple hours. What time are you guys doing yours? So I can be, ready. Come get me at this time. So a lot of coordinating and planning for the holiday, and that didn't happen. So that even with the drug use, she still was coming around holidays. I know that sounds weird, but that was the red flag of her not calling to find out what we were doing and what was going to happen.
Natalie was hesitant to contact the police, at least at first. Her daughter had an open court case, and she didn't want to do anything that could negatively affect that. But with a month of silence, the family, Anastasia's relatives on both sides, they determined that it was important to do something. Anastasia had never been out of contact for days, much less weeks. So they began their search. And that search, it would bring up more questions than answers. Anastasia Brenda Ferriera was 19 years old when she went missing in March of 2023. She would be 22 years old today. She's a Hispanic female, approximately 4 foot 11 inches tall, weighs around 85 to 90 pounds, and has dark brown curly hair and brown eyes. She has a light birthmark on her left cheek, and she has several visible tattoos. The numbers 505 on her inner right forearm, the words "till death" on her left forearm, Ferriera in cursive on her chest, and blurred script on her thumb. Her ears are pierced, and when she was last seen, her hair was her natural dark brown, but she has been known to dye it in the past. Anyone with information about Anastasia's disappearance is asked to contact the Albuquerque Police Department at 505-242-COPS or Albuquerque Metro Crime Stoppers at 505-843-STOP or p3tips.com/531. There's a $10,000 family-funded reward for information leading to her whereabouts. Next time on The Fall Line, the investigation into Anastasia's disappearance. What happened when her family tried to report her missing, what investigators found and didn't find, and what a mother and grandmother have refused to stop doing for nearly 3 years. If you know of a case that should be covered on The Fall Line, there's a link to our case submission form in the show notes. Thank you for listening. The Fall Line is an independent podcast, and we appreciate listener support. It allows us to do research, obtain FOIA, pay our content advisors, and support and donate to the causes we care about. Our therapy fund is paid for through Patreon and Apple Premium subscriptions. If you try out the products we advertise, please use our sponsor codes. It really helps. And please take a moment to rate and review our show in your podcast app of choice. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to check your subscriptions to make sure that you're set for automatic downloads so that you do not miss an episode. My book, Lay Them to Rest, is out everywhere. Find out more through the link in our show notes. The Fall Line is created by Laura Norton and Brooke Hargrove. The show is written, hosted, researched, and produced by Laura Norton. Engineered by Southern Gothic Media and Rachel Boyd. Content advisement by Vic Kennedy. Special thanks to Liz Lipka.